Hello, we are now beginning Hilchot Meghilla and Hanukka. This is the last section of Halachot before the end of Sefer Zemanim, the third book, third volume of the Mishne Tora, dealing with the laws of the different Muadim, the different mitzvot that have to do with various times throughout the year, the holidays, and so forth. The last of which is the laws of Purim and Hanukka. Before we begin, I'll read uh, the title of the section. We have הלכות מרילה בחנוכה. יש בכללן שתי מצוות עשה מדברי סופרים, ואינן מן המניין, ובאור שתי מצוות אלו בפרקים אלו. So the laws of Meghilla and Hanukka, they include two mitzvot aseh, two positive commandments from the words of the scribes, and they are not included in the count of 613 mitzvot. And the explanation of these two mitzvot are in the following chapters. I will say about this, first of all, it is interesting to note that Rabbeinu calls this section Hilchot Meghilla and Hanukka. You would think it should be Hilchot Purim v'Hanukka or Hilchot Meghilla v'Ner Hanukka, right? Meghilla is the primary, the recitation of the Meghilla, as we will see, is the primary commandment that pertains to Purim. And Hanukka is the time period of the holiday of Hanukka. The primary mitzvah would be Ner Hanukka. And it seems that these two mitzvot are not parallel one to the other. It's an interesting observation. I have an idea, though I would be happy to hear if any of you have any other ideas. But I'll give my thoughts on this. As we will see, the primary mitzvah of Purim is the recitation of the Meghilla, and the first two chapters which deal with Purim, as opposed, right, there are four chapters in this section. The first two chapters deal with Purim. The second two chapters, or the last two chapters, deal with Hanukka. The first chapter will deal only with the recitation of Meghillat Esther, and the second chapter also will primarily be dealing with that, and only at the end will deal with the other obligations of Purim. On the other hand, the last two chapters that begin with Hanukka, we'll see that the primary mitzvah, which is the Ner Hanukka, the lights of Hanukka that we are obligated to light, is listed along with the mitzvah of Hallel, of reciting the Hallel on Hanukka, and that is why I understand him to say Meghilla and Hanukka, as we will see when we get to the third chapter and begin to talk about the laws of Hanukka. Another point that I will add, so this section includes two positive commandments from the words of the scribes, and they are not counted in the count of 613 mitzvot. Right? This, if you can see in greater length in Rambam's Sefer HaMitzvot, where he gives a long count of all 613 mitzvot, in addition to an introduction which includes principles about how to go about doing that count. The first of his 14 principles is that we do not count mitzvot that are rabbinically legislated. We only count mitzvot that are from the Torah. And as neither Meghilla nor Hanukka is in the Torah as received from Moshe at Sinai, they are not included within the 613 mitzvot. And there have been people who have mistakenly counted them in the past. Rabbeinu here tells us that they should not be counted. Okay, with that, I will begin the section. So I said the first two chapters will be dealing with the laws of Purim. The second two chapters will be dealing with the laws of Hanukka. This chapter will begin with the mitzvah of Kiryat Meghilla, of reciting Meghillat Esther on Purim, and the proper time in which we do that recitation. אוקיי. הלכות מרילה, פרק א', הלכה א', קריאת המרילה בזמנה מצוות עשה מדברי סופרים, והדברים ידועים שהיא תקנת נביאים. The recitation of the Meghilla in its proper time is a positive commandment from the words of the scribes, and the matter is known that it is an institution of the Nevi'im. Right, so I already explained in the beginning what it means for it to be a mitzvah aseh from the words of the scribes. It is interesting here also to note that he says that it is instituted by the prophets. A second place in addition to the introduction to Sefer HaMitzvot, if you remember the introduction to the Mishne Tora, which is at the beginning of this book, at the end of his list, he has a short list of the mitzvot. At the end of his list of mitzvot lo ta'aseh, of the prohibitions from the Torah, he has a short list of mitzvot that were instituted after Matan Torah, after receiving the Torah at Sinai. There's a short number of mitzvot that were instituted since then, including Meghilla and including Ner Hanukka. And there he says that this is done by a Navi with his Beit Din, right, by a prophet and his Beit Din and his court. And it is interesting to see that a Navi, Dafka, and specifically a Navi is emphasized here. And this is not because the Navi receives this mitzvah from God in any way, shape, or form, which would be a prohibition of Bal Tosif, but rather because of their authority that they received from the Torah to institute laws as they see fit. And as such, we do not see a pasuk that is the source of the recitation of Meghilla. Right? It is easy to be led astray and to think that the obligation to recite the Meghilla stems from a pasuk in Megillat Esther, and that is incorrect because Megillat Esther is not the Torah; it is a later book. Rather, the authority to institute the recitation of Meghilla stems from the Torah's giving the court the authority to do so. Okay, with that I will continue. והכל חייבים בקריאתה, אנשים ונשים, גרירים ועבדים משוחררים, מחנכים את הקטנים לקרותה, and everyone is obligated in its recitation, men, women, converts, and freed slaves, and we raise children to recite it. Right? Again, raising children in mitzvot is something that comes very often throughout halacha, throughout the Torah shebe'al peh. Children are not obligated in the mitzvot, yet we do try to raise them in fulfilling them. ואפילו כהנים בעבודתם, מבטלין עבודתם, ובאים לשמוע מקרא מגילה, וכן מבטלים תלמוד תורה למקרא מגילה, קל וחומר לשאר מצוות של התורה, כולן נדחין מפני מקרא מגילה. And even kohanim, even priests who are in the middle of the temple worship, or the temple service, they stop their service. Right? They stop their service and they come to hear the recitation of the Meghilla. And so too, we stop the study of Torah in order to hear the Mikra Meghilla, to hear the recitation of the Meghilla. All the more so for all other commandments of the Torah, right? As all the mitzvot are equated to Talmud Torah, to the study of Torah, right? So if the study of Torah is postponed because of the recitation of Megillah, then all the more so all other commandments of the Torah, they are all postponed because of the recitation of the Megillah. And there is nothing that the recitation of Meghilla is postponed because of it, except for a corpse that does not have anyone to bury it. That if you happen upon it, you bury it first and then recite. הלכה ב' אחד הקורא ואחד השומע מן הקורא יעשה ידי חובתו, והוא שישמע ממי שהוא חייב בקריאתה. לפיכך, אם היה הקורא קטן או שוטה, השומע ממנו לא יעשה. Both the reciter and the person who hears from the reciter, both of them fulfill their obligation. So long as the person hears it from someone who is also obligated in its recitation. Therefore, if the person reciting was a child or a person who has lost their sanity, both of whom are patur, or exempt from all mitzvot in the Torah, the person who hears from them does not fulfill his obligation. הלכה ג' מצווה לקרות את כולה. The obligation, the mitzvah, is to recite all of it, right? To recite the entirety of of Megillat Esther. ומצווה לקרותה בלילה וביום. וכל הלילה כשר לקריאת הלילה, וכל היום כשר לקריאת היום. And the obligation is to recite it. The obligation is to recite it at night and in the day, right? To recite it twice. And the entirety of the night is valid for the recitation of the night, and the entirety of the day is valid for the recitation of the day. And we bless prior to its recitation at night 3 berachot, 3 blessings. ברוך אתה השם אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קדשנו במצוותיו ושבענו על מקרא מגילה. Right? Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified us, who has made us holy in his commandments, and has commanded us in the recitation of Meghilla. Right? And as I mentioned in the beginning, the authority for the Bet Din to institute mitzvot as they see fit comes from the Torah itself, as it says, Lo tasur, do not stray from anything which they shall say to you right or left, right? As that is their source, since the source of authority for instituting mitzvot comes from the Torah, which comes from God, indirectly the mitzvah of recitation of Meghilla is also included within the law that God has given us, as we are obligated by God to listen to the authority of the Bet Din. And therefore we can say, who has made us holy in his commandments and has commanded us in the recitation of Meghilla. Okay, the second blessing, ברוך אתה השם אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has performed miracles for our nisim, for our ancestors in those days, at this time, right? In those days in the past, at this time, meaning at this time of the year, at the time of in which we read the Meghilla. The third blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech, Baruch atah Adonai, our God, melech ha'olam, Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech ha'olam, v'ahyanu v'qiyamanu v'gi'anu l'zeman hazeh. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has brought us to live, to exist, and to reach this time. Right, this beracha, right, we should never take it for granted any day that we are alive. Right, any of us at any moment can pass away, God forbid, and therefore we should always thank God that we reach any day that we reach, especially when we have the zechut to hear the mitzvah like Mikra Meghilla. וביום אינו חוזר ומברך שהחיינו. Right? In the day, we do not repeat and bless the third blessing of Shehayanu. ומקום שנהרו לברך אחריה, מברך, right? And a place which had the practice to bless after it, right? After the recitation, blesses the following. ברוך אתה השם אלוהינו מלך העולם, האל הרב את ריבנו, והדן את דיננו, והנוקם את נקמתנו, והנפרע לנו משרנו, והמשלם גמול לכל אויבי נפשנו. ברוך אתה השם, האל הנפרע לעמו ישראל, מכל שריהם, האל המושיע. Right. Blessed are you, Lord Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who fights our fights, judges our judgments, avenges our vengeances, redeems us from our adversaries, and exacts retribution from our enemies. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who redeems his nation, Israel, from all their adversaries. God, our Redeemer, the Redeemer. Okay. Halacha Daled. With that, we have now finished the first part where he deals with what the Hagdara of the mitzvah is, what the commandment is, and now we are dealing with the proper time in which to recite the Meghilla. Ezehu zeman qari'atha, or what is the time of its recitation? Zemanim harbe tiqinu lah, shene'emar bizmanehem. They instituted many times there are many times that they instituted for its recitation, as it says, in their times. Right? It doesn't say bismannam, right? In their time. It says in their times. And these are the times of its recitation. כל מדינה שהייתה מוקפת חומה בימי יהושע בן נון, בין בארץ בין בחוץ על הארץ, אף על פי שאין לה עכשיו חומה, קוראים בה 15 לאדר, ומדינה זו היא הנקראת קרח. וכל מדינה שלא הייתה מוקפת חומה בימות יהושע, ואף על פי שהיא מוקפת חומה עתה, קוראים ב14, ומדינה זו היא הנקראת עיר. Right, so these are the times of its recitation. Any city, right? There are many words here that will mean city. So I will give an introduction of what the words are. I'll be used, and I will define them as we see them, and then after that, I will just be using the Hebrew words in my translation, so to not cause confusion in hearing the word city over and over again. Right. So any medina, right, a medina or any city that is enwalled, right, is surrounded by a wall in the day that was surrounded by a wall in the days of Yehoshua bin Nun, right, when we entered into Eretz Israel, whether in Israel or outside of Israel, even though it does not have a wall now, recites on the 15th of Adar. Right, the people who live in that city recite on the 15th of Adar. Umdina zo hi hanqret kerach. And so, in this Medina, right, Medina is the general term for cities. Under Medina, we will have kerach and we will have ir. So a city that had a wall during the times of Yehoshua bin Nun is what is known as is what is called a kerach. Kerach means enwalled city. Right, milashon lichroch, like in Pesach where we have korech, which is a wrap. Right, so too a kerach here is a city that is enwrapped or surrounded by a choma, by a wall. And any city, v'chol medina, right? Again, the general term. Any medina that was not surrounded by a city, by a wall during the days of Yehoshua, even though it is surrounded by a wall today or now, they recite on the 14th. And this Medina is what is called an Ir, right? Right. So this Medina is called an Ir. So we have Medina, which is a general term, and under Medina we have a kerach or an Ir. A kerach is one that is surrounded by a wall, and an Ir is one that is not surrounded by a wall. The definition of Ir will become a little bit more precise in a little bit when we start to compare it with a kefar, or a village. הלכה ה' שושן הבירה, אף על פי שלא הייתה מוקפת חומה בימי יהושע בן נון, הורעין ב15. So Shushan, the capital city, or the capital of Persia during the time of Mordechai and Esther, right? So Shushan, the capital, even though it was not surrounded by a wall in the days of Yehoshua bin Nun, right? So it should not be treated like a kerach. It recites on the 15th anyway. שבה היה הנס שנאמר ונוח ב15 בו, right? So they recite on the 15th anyway, because the miracle occurred there, as it says, and they rested on the 15th of it, right, in that of Adar, of the month. ולמה תלו הדבר בימי יהושע כדי לחלוק כבוד לארץ ישראל שהייתה חרבה באותו הזמן, כדי שיהיו קוראים כבני שושן ויחשבו כאילו הן כרכים מוקפין, אף על פי שהן עתה חרבין, הואיל והיו מוקפין בימי יהושע, ויהיה זיכרון לארץ ישראל בנס זה. Why did they connect the matter or make it dependent upon the days of Yehoshua, right? Since we're saying that Shushan is treated, is where the miracle happened, you could have thought that they should have said any city that was enwalled during the times of Shushan, during the times of the miracle, which is not what they did. They connected it with Kibush Haaretz, with the conquest of Israel in the days of Yehoshua. Right? So why did they do so? In order to give honor to Eretz Israel, to the land of Israel, which was destroyed at that time, so that those cities recite like the residents of Shushan, that they would be considered as if they were in walled kirachim, in walled cities, even though they are now destroyed, since they were enwalled in the days of Yehoshua. In this way, there will be a memory for Eretz Israel through this miracle, which occurred in the Galut. הלכה ו' בני הכתרים שאינם מתקבסים בבתי כנסיות, אלא בשני וחמישי, תקנו להם שיהיו מקדימים לקוראין ביום הכניסה. So residents of villages, so now we have a new word, kifarim, which I will translate as villages, that only gather in the synagogues on Mondays and Thursdays to hear the recitation of the Torah as was instituted by Moshe Rabbeinu. Tiktenu lahem, they instituted for them that they can push it earlier and recite on the day of gathering, right, on the Mondays or Thursdays. Yesad, how is this so? Im hal 14 להיות בשני או בחמישי, קוראים בו ביום, ואם חל להיות ביום אחר, חוץ משני או החמישי, מקדימים לקוראין בשני או בחמישי, הסמוך ל14. How's this so? If the 14th falls on a Monday or a Thursday, then they read on that same day. And if it falls on any day other than Monday or Thursday, then they push it earlier and recite on the Monday or Thursday that is the closest to the 14th. Rabbeinu will explain what that means now in Halakha Zayin. Law 7. Kesad, חל 14 להיות באחד בשבת, מקדימין וקוראים בחמישי, שהוא יום 11. חל להיות בשלישי, קוראים בשני, שהוא יום 13. חל להיות ברביעי, קוראים בשני, שהוא יום 12. וכל אלו שמקדימין וקוראים קודם 14, אין קוראים אותה בפחות מ10. And so how is this so? Explaining the law that we just read in the Chavav. If the 14th falls on a Sunday, on the first day of the week, right? Shabbat here means week. If it falls on a Sunday, then we push it back earlier and recite on Thursday, which is the 11th. That is the most recent Yom Kenisai, the most recent day of gathering before that Sunday. If it falls on the 13th, right? If the 14th falls on if it falls on a Tuesday, if the 14th falls on a Tuesday, then we recite on Monday, which is the 13th. If it falls on a Wednesday, then we recite on Monday, which is the 12th of Adar. And all of these, where we push it back earlier and recite prior to the 14th, we do not recite if there are less than 10 people. Right? Since we saw that this institution was done by Hachamim in order to lehakel, to make it easier on the people who lived in Kifarim, in the villages that did not have, did not gather in the synagogue every day. So therefore, if on Monday or Thursday they do not have those 10 people, then they should not read it on that day. Rather, they should push it off until the 14th. Okay. I will note, I'll read Halakha Het and then I will say a note. I'll make a comment. Halakha Het. כפר שאין נכנסים בו בשני ובחמישי, אין קוראים אותה אלא ב14. A village that does not gather on Monday or Thursday, they do not recite. They recite it on the 14th, right? As we said. בעיר שאין בה 10 בטלנים קבועים בבית הכנסת לצורכי ציבור, היא ככפר, ומקדימין וקוראים ביום הכניסה. ואם אין בעיר 10 בני אדם, תקנתו קלקלתו, והריהם כאנשי עיר גדולה, ואין קוראים אלא ב14. Right? In a city, right? I will remind everyone, this ir is the word that we saw earlier of a city that is not enwalled, a city that does not have 10 batlanin that are fixed in the Bet Knesset, in the synagogue for the needs of the public. I'll explain in a moment what these batlanim are. This is considered like a kefar, like a village that pushes it back earlier and recites on the day of gathering. Okay. Batlanin are, Rabbeinu has a teshuvah where he explains what these are. And these are people who are available to leave their work at any given moment so that they can come and deal with the public needs of the community and are in the Beit Knesset, in the synagogue. They are not people who do not have any work, and therefore we see in the Yerushalmi it says batlanin mim melachtan velo batlanin she'en lahen melacha. Right? We see that they stop their work, and not that they stop and they don't have work. And this I think is also something that Rabbeinu himself might have changed his opinion on, as you can see he has a discrepancy between how he explains it in his commentary to the Mishnah and how he explains it in that Teshuvah. Right, so if they do not have those 10 people who are fixed in the synagogue for the purposes of the community, then they are like a kefar, and they push it back earlier to recite on the day of gathering. If and if the city does not even have 10 people, then its fix is what messes it up for it. Right, the same thing that makes it be judged as a kefar, right? The fact that it doesn't have the 10 batlanim, it makes it be judged like a kefar, and read it and bring it back earlier. That same thing is what makes it go back and read on the 14th. Because we said by a kefar also that a kefar that does not have a minyan, that does not have 10 people, does not read it earlier, but rather waits until the 14th. And so to a city that does not have 10 people, they would they are like the members of a large city, and they only recite on the 14th. I'll make a comment here that as I was reading it, I asked myself this of what is the precise distinction between a kefar and an ir, since it is apparently not a matter of size, since you have an ir that does not even have 10 people. Right, so if you can have a city that does not even have 10 people, so it is seemingly not just a matter, right? I would think that should be called a kefar and not an ir. And Mori Gafir, Yosef Kafir, the Yemenite rabbi, wrote a very excellent commentary on the Mishne Tora, points out here that this situation of Bnei Kefarim that was mentioned in Halacha Vav, of people who live in villages, is a situation that was known in Yemen, where you had certain villages that were small enough that they did not have 10 people there to have a minyan, and they had to go to villages that were close to them on Mondays and Thursdays. They would go on Mondays and Thursdays in order to hear the Torah, and so too they would go on Shabbat. They would have an eruv that would allow them to go to Beth Knesset, to the synagogue on Shabbat as well. And they did not pray in their own kefar, in their own village. The ir, on the other hand, as I understand it, recites in that same ir. Right? They don't have a they do not have a place that is. They do not go and read somewhere else on Mondays and Thursdays. And with that, the distinction becomes clear, and all of these halachot as well become clear. So, הלכה ט' במה דברים אמורים שמקדימים וקוראים ביום הכניסה? Right, in what case and what scenario are we referring to in which we push it earlier and recite on the day of gathering? בזמן שיש להם לישראל מלכות, right, in a time that Israel has sovereignty, right, that has sovereignty over itself in the land of Israel, and enforces the mitzvot in the land. אבל בזמן הזה, but in our times, אין קוראים אותה אלא בזמנה, שהוא יום 14 ויום 15. בני כפרים ובני עיירות קוראים ב14, ובני כרכין קוראים ב15. Right? But in this time, in our days, we only recite it in its proper time, which is the 14th and the 15th. The members or the residents of villages of Kefarim and of cities of Ayarot, right, they recite on the 14th, and the residents of Kerachin, of enwalled cities, they recite on the 15th. This is a halacha that many people made incorrect, had incorrect understandings of this halacha, and I hope that I will give it its proper explanation. בן עיר שהלך לכרך ובן כרך שהלך לעיר, אם הייתה דעתו לחזור למקומו בזמן קריאה ונתעכב ולא חזר, קורא כמקומו. ואם לא היה בדעתו לחזור אלא אחר זמן הקריאה, קורא עם אנשי המקום שהוא שם. A resident of a city, right? Again, we said city is an unwalled city. A resident of an ir who goes to a kerach, to a walled city, and so too, a resident of a kerach that goes to an ir, or that went in the past, that went to an ir, if his intention was to return to his original location at the time of reading, I'll come back to these two words of the time of reading, and he was delayed and did not return, he reads like his original location, right? So if he is from an ir, right, an unwalled city, and he goes to a walled city, right? So he's from the unwalled city, and he's in the walled city on the 13th during the day, and his intention is to come back to the unwalled city prior to nightfall, but he is delayed and only comes back later. He comes back after Seta Kochavim. He leaves at 9 p.m. He leaves the kerach to come back to his ir, right? So because his intention was to return to his original location, to the ir, he recites it like the members of the ir, meaning he recites it on the 14th, even though he is currently in a kerach, even though he's currently in a walled city. Right? And if it wasn't his intention to return, or if his intention was to return only after the time of recitation, again, this phrase, which I will come to in a second, then he recites with the people of the location that he is there. And so if his intention was that, right, a person from Jerusalem who goes to Tel Aviv and intends to stay in Tel Aviv to hear the Meghilla on the 14th, he then becomes obligated to hear the Meghilla on the 14th. Okay. Many people understood this halakha to mean that therefore a person of Jerusalem theoretically can miss the obligation of reciting the Meghilla, or can miss Purim altogether if he is in, or sorry, not a person of Jew, a person of, or either way, a person of Jerusalem or a person of Tel Aviv. Okay, so if a person of Jerusalem stays in Jerusalem on the 14th, so he is not obligated on the 14th, and then on the 14th during the day, he goes to Tel Aviv and intends to stay in Tel Aviv at nightfall of the 15th, so then he doesn't read in Jerusalem either, because at that point he's intending to stay in Tel Aviv, and this is and then he completely misses the mitzvah. And likewise, the other way around, that a person can be obligated in both on the 14th and on the 15th. by being in Tel Aviv on the 14th and then coming to Jerusalem on the 15th in order to again hear it. And both of these are incorrect as I understand them, and I hope that I'm understanding the halakha correctly. Uh, Note that, and this is again a comment of Mori Yosef Gafech. Note that he says that Rabbeinu says, if im haytha da'ato lahzor limkumo bizman qari'ah, right, and not, it does not say bizmanna, right, or bizman qari'ah, right. It says in the general time of recitation, not its time of recitation, meaning not the time of the ir or of the kirach, rather the time of recitation in general. And which time is this? This is the time of recitation for most cities, which is the Ir, which is the 14th. And therefore, the time that dictates whether you are to be treated like a resident of an Ir or a resident of a Kerach is nightfall of the 14th. So if you are in Tel Aviv and your intention is to return to Jerusalem by the nightfall before the nightfall of the 14th, so then you are treated like a resident of Jerusalem and you are obligated in the 15th and not the 14th, regardless of where you are at the nightfall of the 15th. And so too, the other way around. A person who is in Jerusalem and is intending to go to Tel Aviv on before nightfall of the 14th, so then he is treated like a resident of Tel Aviv, both on the 14th and on the 15th. And so too, a person who is in Jerusalem and intends to stay in Jerusalem on the 14th and to come back on the 14th late at night and then stay in Tel Aviv for the rest of the 2 days, he is exempt on the 14th and would be obligated on the 15th to recite Meghilla, even though he is in Jerusalem, is in Tel Aviv at nightfall of the 15th. The time that establishes it is the nightfall Seta Kochavim of the 14th. Okay, that is the first part of the halakha. The second part of the halakha also has had, in my opinion, many misunderstandings, and this too I hope I will say correctly. הוכרח בכל הסמוך לו, בכל הנראה עמו, אם אין ביניהם יותר על 2,000 אמה, הרי זה ככרח, וקוראין ב15. I apologize. And a kerach, a walled city, and any any city that is next to it, and anything that is seen with it, if it does not, if there is not between them more than 2,000 amma, which is about 1 kilometer, this is like the kerach, and they recite on the 15th. Right? This phrase, "Bechol hanir'eh immo," also had a number of different understandings of how to understand this phrase. And what led people astray is an incorrect girsa in the Talmud, which, if anyone is interested in looking at that, they can look at the Rif on this halakha. It's right at the beginning of Masechet Meghilla, and they will see that more in detail. But halakha is any, if you have you have a city of Jerusalem, for example, and a city that is right outside of it. Think Silwan for people who know Jerusalem. If a person who is standing outside of the city and looks at the city and sees them as if they are one city, right? He considers them as if they are one city as he's looking at them, right? Even though there is a gap between them. so long as that gap is not more than 2,000 amot, this is considered like a kerach, and you recite it on the 15th, even in that city that is not inwalled, right? So, right, so you have the old city of Jerusalem has a wall around it, and the whole rest of Jerusalem, right, the new part of Jerusalem is not within the city walls. A an outsider who's looking from outside of Jerusalem and looks at Jerusalem sees it all as one connected city, right? It's nir'eh immo, right? It's seen as one connected city, and therefore it is considered like the Kerach, even though the whole new part of Jerusalem is not included within the city walls. Um, Whereas many people were led astray and read this as V'chol hanir'eh mimenu, right? And anything that is seen from it, meaning if you are in Jerusalem, in the old city, and you're able to look out and see the rest of the city, then it is included within it. This, I think, is an incorrect reading, and the correct reading is as I have said. And so too, a city, if you have two cities that are very close to each other, even within 2,000 amot, even within 1 kilometer of each other, but an outsider looking in looks at them and sees clearly that they are two separate cities, even though they're within 1 kilometer of each other, they would still not be considered as if they are one. And if one of the cities if one of them is a kerach, then the other one would not be considered a kerach, even though it's within 2,000 amot, because it is not nir'eh immo. It is not seen as if it is the same city. Okay. הלכה י"א עיר שהיא ספק ואין ידוע אם הייתה מוקפת חומה במות יהושע בן נון או אחר כן הוקפה, קוראים בשני הימים שהן 14 ו15 ובליליהם. A city, right? Again, an ir, right? So a city that does not have a wall. A city that has, but it has a doubt, right? There's a safek, there's a doubt as to, and it is not known if it was inwalled, if it was surrounded by a wall in the days of Yoshua bin Nun, or if it was surrounded only afterwards. Members of that city recite on both days, which are the 14th and the 15th, and in their nights, right? So they recite 4 times, and they bless on its recitation only on the 14th, since it is the time of recitation for most of the world, right? Since most cities are not surrounded by a wall, we make the assumption that this city was also probably not surrounded by a wall, and therefore we make the berachot only on the first day alone. הלכה י"ב קראו את המגילה באדר ואחר כך עיברו בית דין את השנה, חוזרים וקוראים אותה באדר השני בזמנה. If we read the Meghilla in Adar, right, on the 14th or 15th or whatever time is the proper time of that city in Adar, and then when the month ends, the Bet Din decided le'aber et hashana, they decided to add another Adar, then we repeat and recite the Meghilla again ba'adar sheni, in the second Adar in its proper time. Right? Even though they did not know that there was going to be Adar, a second Adar, and they read it on the first Adar, they do it again on the second Adar. הלכה י"ג אין קוראין את המגילה בשבת גזירה שמא יתלנה בידו וילך אצל מי שהוא בקיא לקרותה ויעבירנה 4 אמות ברשות הרבים שהכל חייבים בקריאתה ואין הכל בקיאים בקריאתה. We do not recite the Meghilla on Shabbat as a gezerah, as a decree, lest a person carry it in his hand and walk and go to someone who is proficient in reciting it. And he will have transported the Meghilla for a moth in a public domain, which is a biblical prohibition, as we have seen in Hilchot Shabbat. Right, this gezerah of not reading the Meghilla on Shabbat is also a similar gezerah that we have seen with regards to both shofar of Rosh Hashanah that falls on Shabbat, where they also made a decree to not blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, not blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah that falls on Shabbat, and so too for Sukkot. We do not notel et halulav. We do not take the lulav on Sukkot that falls on Shabbat for the same reason. שהכל חייבים בקריאתה, when הכל בקריאים בקריאתה, right? As everyone is obligated in its recitation, but not everyone is proficient in its recitation, right? So you may take your personal Meghilla and bring it to someone who is proficient in reciting it so that they can recite it for you. לפיכך, אם חל זמן קריאתה בשבת, מקדימים לקוראין אותה קודם השבת. Therefore, if the time of its recitation fell on Shabbat, we push it back earlier and recite it prior to Shabbat, right? Meaning on Friday. We will see Rabbeinu's explanation of this in the next halakha. ושואלים ודורשים בהלכות פורים באותה שבת כדי להזכיר שהוא פורים, right? And we ask and teach the laws of Purim on that same Shabbat, which is the 14th, in order to remind, as a reminder that it is Purim, right? Because we can't read the Meghilla, so we study the laws of Purim to remember that it is Purim. הלכה י"ד. כיצד? How is this so? יום 14 שחל להיות בשבת, בני עיירות מקדימין וקוראים בערב שבת, ובני כרכים קוראים בזמנם באחד בשבת. Right? If the 14th of Adar falls on Shabbat, then the residents of the ayarot, of the cities, the unwalled cities, bring it early, push it earlier, and recite on Erev Shabbat, on Friday. And Bnei Kerachim, the people, the residents of walled cities, recite it in its proper time on Sunday, which is the 15th. חל יום 15 להיות בשבת, בני כרכים מקדימים וקוראים בערב שבת, שהוא יום 14, ובני עיירות קוראים בו ביום, שהוא זמנם. ונמצאו הכל קוראים ב14. If the 15th falls on a Shabbat, then the residents of the Kerachim, who are supposed to have read it on Shabbat on the 15th, bring it back earlier and recite on Erev Shabbat, on Friday, which is the 14th. And the residents of the cities of the Ayarot recite it on that same day, which is their proper time, meaning on Friday, which is the 14th, as they were supposed to read it. When you say and it ends up being that everyone recited it on the 14th. That's the end of Perek Aleph, and we will start Perek Bet tomorrow.